Hello and welcome, friends, to our Sunday teaching. Today's a special class. Um, I wanted to talk about my experience during the Washington, D.C. Walk for Peace initiative and celebration, which I just got back from. Everybody was asking about it, and instead of telling the same story 700 times, I thought, why don't we just do a teaching on it? And it'll be fun and informal. So, before we dive into it all, how about if I give everybody a background for those of you who might not have been following? I don't know how you couldn't. It was everywhere. But maybe that's just my media feeds. I couldn't turn any device on without the Walk for Monks popping up. And it was very lovely, right? So, the Walk for Peace initiative was initiated by a handful of monks from the Hongdao Vipassana Bhavan Center in Fort Worth, Texas, and these monks walked from Fort Worth, Texas, to Washington D.C., promoting peace, compassion, and nonviolence. Their walk began in late October, I think it was October 26th, and spanned approximately 2,300 miles, which is about 3,700 kilometers. I'll have to ask AI how many steps that is. Wouldn't that be fascinating? Probably more steps than I get in about 10 years. They arrived in Washington, D.C. on February 10th after 108 days of walking. The walk was initiated by their leader, Bhikkhu Pannakara, and began with about 24 Theravada monks. They were Theravada monks, most of them American, but from indigenous Buddhist countries. The leader was from Vietnam. There was a lot of monks from Laos, Cambodia, Myanmar, Sri Lanka, but traditionally Theravada countries. There were also some monks from other countries. There was a French monk who was originally, I think, Sri Lankan. And also along the way, there was there was a terrible accident, and two members were injured. Nothing intentional. What happened was a truck hit their vehicle, the support vehicle that followed them, and they would put all their sleeping gear and food and things in there. And then the supporting truck hit the monks, so they weren't hit directly by in the accident, but from the supporting truck getting pushed over. One was a volunteer, and he had fairly mild causes, injuries. But sadly, Venerable Bhante Dhampamasan was injured quite badly, his right leg, and he ended up having to have it amputated. After the accident, they airlifted him out, and but they did take care of him, and so that was quite sad. It was astounding, though, the energy of Dhampamasan afterwards and throughout the whole thing. Just an amazing attitude. So, anyways, it ended at a celebration in Washington, D.C., as most of you probably saw on social media. And there were 2 days in Washington, the final event. And they were primarily walking around Washington, D.C., and sharing the joy, bringing some notoriety to these topics and subjects that they're highlighting, the work that they're doing for peace, and a series of speeches. So they invited monks from across America and the world to come and march with them on these last 2 days. They ended up not being the very last 2 days. They were invited to walk further to Maryland by the governor, And so they did do that like the next day before going back to Fort Worth. But DC was the big event that everybody was arriving for. And so an additional, I would say about 250 monks. I didn't see an official count, but like in the chapel, it seemed like maybe there was about that many additional monks coming. Most Theravada from originally from South Asian countries, but everyone was represented. There was Zen monks who were Tibetan monks. There were Mahayana monks from China and other places. So that was super cool. So the first day was Tuesday. It was the day they arrived, and we all walked about 5 miles, I think, that day. And then on the next day, Wednesday, the main event was we walked about 8 miles through the capital, and we walked all around the monuments, and it was a nice route that we walked. But boy, did they walk fast. We're not all walk for peace monks that can walk 3,000 miles, and so some of us older monks and ones that aren't in great shape, man, was it hard to keep up with those guys. I'm pretty good with the length. I can walk a pretty good length, but boy, am I not used to walking 3 miles an hour. And so we all managed to keep up, but that was the challenge for me. And again, we walked all around all the Washington monuments, and it culminated in a speech at the Lincoln Memorial, and that was great. The Dalai Lama prepared a statement that his niece read. His niece is actually in charge of the Washington D.C. Tibetan group, and so she read this beautiful piece by the Dalai Lama, and the Dalai Lama thanked them for their work. There were a lot of other famous Buddhists there, and the walk was really an incredible experience to be there. It was a bit of a challenge to get there. Me and Nawang were really trying to hash it out. It appeared in the beginning just to be too expensive. SBT, we're a poor group, and but we did a little finagling, and I found that Greyhound buses are actually fairly cheap these days. Pretty good cruise, about 16 hours to get there. And when I arrived, it didn't seem appropriate to complain about my 16-hour bus ride when these guys walked 108 days through a blizzard, right? So, but anyways, I managed to get there, and it was extraordinary. So glad I did, and it was cool. There was a lot of dignitaries there, a lot of famous people there. Everyone probably saw a lot of the pictures by now. One of the great people that was there was Venerable Bhikkhu Bodhi, which he's famous in the Buddhist world, especially in the Theravada world, for his translations and interpretations, and so it was pretty cool having him there. I saw him on stage, and then I'm walking, and the next thing I know, he's walking in front of me. He's like right in front of me, and I was a bit starstruck, and I was determined not to gush all over him, tell him that you're my hero, and I turn to your books for everything. But then I found everybody was doing that, but I think most of them were doing it quieter than I was. Nevertheless, what was cool was as I was walking, every time I turned around, he's next to me. And he noticed it. And at one point, I joked and I said, Bhikkhu, honest, I'm not stalking you. It's just coincidence that I end up next to you. Because sometimes he'd come up from the back and end up next to me. And he laughed, and I said, we must have a pretty good karmic connection. But I did walk with him almost the whole time for both days, and it was wonderful to chat with him and get to know him a little bit. And there were so many famous Buddhists there. Some of them I didn't really recognize because they were from the Theravada tradition. And then when we were walking by the Capitol building, there were famous senators out there. At one point I'm walking, I look up, and Nancy Pelosi's standing right there. and Cory Booker, people like that. So that was kind of cool. Um, and of course, just the amazing people that we were walking by. The other great thing about the event was the amazing volunteers that were there. So the Walk for Peace monks started off, and it was just a simple thing. They had no idea what this would turn into, and they're walking with their begging bowls, and they're hoping to get some sustenance and places to sleep. And more people were really interested in what they were doing and helping. And this is important because this is America in the South, which is quite a conservative place, especially outside of cities. And the idea that they were supported and they touched the hearts of these people is quite extraordinary. I spent quite a bit of time in the South. I lived in New Orleans after coming back to America in my robes. And most people I talked to didn't know why I was dressed like that. They never heard of Buddhism or monasticism. So that was quite extraordinary for that fact. And then, but the support started. We got more and more. Like one gentleman who helped facilitate a place for me to stay. He was just a volunteer and started walking with them. And the next thing he knows, he's kind of in charge of the movement. And and all the volunteers, it kind of worked like that. People just came on and started finding positions or giving themselves positions, and before you know it, it's just this huge mechanism of volunteers around them doing all kinds of things, and including the food. And by the time they got to Washington, they had Vietnamese groups in the area uh, putting together these amazing buffets. So we would walk, and then lunch is an important thing for monks because Theravada monks traditionally don't eat past noon. So lunch is a big deal, and to get it before noon is a big deal. So we would go to churches where they set up buffets, and the most extraordinary thing I ever saw. You never saw so much food in your life. Mostly Asian, Vietnamese food. There was Sri Lankan food, and of course all volunteer, all done for free. Just truly extraordinary. And then I was fortunate that I was able to stay with the monks one night. So it was Tuesday night, and I was able to stay. So they stayed in George Washington University, where they also gave some talks, and it's also where the last loving kindness meditation that was televised took place as well. And they gave the monks. I think it was kind of a medical center, but it was a big open plain room, tile floors. The Jason room they turned into a clinic so they could care for the monks and care for their feet and things like that. Anyways, I had the opportunity to stay with them. So Tuesday night I stayed with them, and they all slept on the floor. Everyone had a yoga mat, and then they had some gear. They had sleeping bags and things like that. And people volunteered, donated all kinds of water and chips and things like that. And all the volunteers were there. It was extraordinary. And of course, Aloka, the peace dog, was there walking around the room while we were all sitting there. When I first arrived, there was only Dampamasan there, who was the monk who had his leg amputated, and so I got a chance to get to know him a little bit, and then the rest of the monks came, and across from me who slept across from me was Venerable Piyatamu, which is the monk who hasn't laid down for 13 years. He sleeps sitting up. which is a common practice in the Theravada tradition, and also common in other traditions like the Tibetan tradition as well. So that was pretty cool, and I was worried if I started snoring, I'd wake up and they're all mad at me, and they'd say, we have 100 miles to walk, and we couldn't sleep because. But boy, did they snore! If I snored, they covered it up, and I was afraid of being old that I'd bother them by getting up to go to the bathroom every 10 minutes. But they were the same as that, and I was amazed at some of the ages of the monks. Some of the monks were quite old, or close to 70, two or three of them, and they walked the whole thing. Just quite extraordinary, but really sweet, loving, affectionate monks. And that was really nice. And the volunteers just did everything they could to care for us. So that's kind of the logistics of it all. But what was extraordinary was the environment in DC. So I've been back in America for a few years now. I was about 20 years away in Asia and Europe. And most of the time I'm walking around, people don't really recognize me much. Once in a while, somebody will come up and say they met the Dalai Lama or something. But what was amazing is that DC was quite primed for monks, and everybody kind of knew they were coming. Everybody was watching them. So when I first arrived at the bus station, people were asking me if I was one of the monks that was walking, and I explained I actually took a bus, and and I wouldn't be so fat if I walked 2,300 miles. So, but the love in DC was really quite amazing. Probably the most extraordinary part of the event was the crowds on each side of us as we were walking through the city. Um, Everybody yelling out thank you and we love you, and giving out flowers, and lots of kids handing out flowers to the monks, and mothers wanting to get their babies blessed by monks, and so many people crying, both men and women, some people on their knees crying, people standing up in tears. um, I wasn't prepared for what an emotional thing it was. And for the monks on the march, we were told not to talk, not to take out our phones, um, to stay silent, to walk, and so we didn't really interact that much with people. And the volunteers were asked also not to interact with the monks. I guess they wanted it to be a somber, deep experience for everybody. The other thing for me was great was to be back into a pro monastic environment, which I haven't experienced in a while. And I made a lot of friends. The first day, all the monks, when you get monks of different traditions, they're a little standoffish. So the first day, everybody was kind of keeping to their own. The second day, everybody really loosened up. All the monks loosened up. And that's where all the smiles came out. And it really became affectionate. And I made a lot of great friends, and they were fun. We had a lot of fun marching and laughing, a lot of hugging going on, those kind of things. Um, but it was really deeply moving to be among the monks and the people, and to be in front of these Walk for Peace monks who were just totally extraordinary. Any questions? Am I going to be the only one talking the whole time? Tell us about Aloka, the peace dog. David, please.
Um, was there anything that you kind of learned that's of specific interest to SBT?
Very much so. And I think I'm going to talk about that in a second. I wanted to take a little break and see. So if you can, I'll talk about that in a moment, why it was important. Now,
I don't have a specific question. I just wanted to let you know I checked with AI, and AI estimates 2,300 miles is approximately 5 million steps.
Oh, man. They could sit down the rest of their life and be healthy. Yes, Masang, please.
What did the monks have to say about secular Buddhism?
Oh, nobody really reacted much when I told them I was a secular Buddhist. I do have cards that I hand out for our organization. And it's always kind of a weird thing. Me and my friends often talk about it. Is it weird for us to hand out cards? Nowadays, it's kind of popular. My cards just have our web address on them. But, anyways, I was handing those out. Yeah, I didn't get any bad responses from it. For those of you who might not know that some of the traditional groups aren't thrilled with the idea of secular Buddhism. Some of them think it's very contrary to what they're doing. Most of them don't understand it. Also, most of them see secular Buddhism or understand it in its most extreme presentation, similar to Stephen Batchelor, who kind of tends to secular Buddhism is completely secular Buddhism, where ours is more of a balance between, we're on a spectrum, right? Yeah.
Quite funny when you said that when you arrived into the big place, and I heard you say that everybody was just sleeping in yoga mats on the floor, and then they got the beer out. And I went, what? They got the beer out? You'd actually said they got their gear out.
Oh, yeah. Oops.
Oops.
I almost gave out a monk's secret. Yeah, they had all their gear that they put out. That was extraordinary. Yeah. It was so nice to be around them, and the the monk who had his leg amputated. I'm sorry, I keep their names are hard for me to remember. I'm not so good at Pali. A volunteer brought this four-wheel vehicle to this this four-wheeled small vehicle, like all terrain. You probably saw it in the pictures. And so I had to help Banti get into it, and watching him learn how to run it, he kept crashing into objects around the room. And I finally got the hang of it. But we were worried during the march that he'd run people over by accident because it was a little bit powerful. But he handled it. He handled it quite well. And so, yeah, oh, there was a lot of joy. Lots of people. Yeah, people were in a heightened state of awareness. The volunteers too. They were in altered reality. You could see it in their faces. So that was pretty cool. So why don't I get to David's question, and talk about why this was important and what I learned. So I think some of the biggest takeaways for me was, I guess first we just have to say just this idea of bringing peace to America and the world, highlighting peace, compassion, and mindfulness, right? The promotion of these things is number one, and I'm hoping that a lot of people are really taking that to heart today and for the rest of their lives. The other one is that they're promoting Buddhism in America and the world, which is kind of needed. We were some of the Sangha members. We've been having conversations about potentially Buddhism seemed to be kind of falling away. Not that many young people coming to it. So for Buddhist communities, for Buddhism itself, this couldn't have come at a better time. And of course, the peace, compassion, and mindfulness couldn't come at a better time, especially here in America, but also in the world where it seems that there's a lot of suffering happening. And then for me, specifically to share and promote a positive image of monasticism in America is really important to me because SBT we're working towards building a monastery and creating secular Buddhist monks and nuns. And so, and even personally, now that when I'm out, people understand what monks are now. Like it was amazing after the march when I was in D.C. Um, the interaction I had with people was so much different. The first day I arrived, a few people had heard about it. Some people were asking me if I was one of the Walk for Peace monks, but many people didn't. They didn't understand it. Some Uber drivers hadn't heard about the walk, but clearly after the walk, it was huge in D.C. You know, everything was shut down for it, so everybody knew about it, and knew about monks, and knew and had this positive image of monastics. So that was wonderful, and then to share and promote a secular Buddhist message. So David asked about this, and Pasang as well. And though they're not secular Buddhists, they're traditionally Theravada Buddhists, but their message that they were sharing was secular Buddhist, uh, even though they didn't mean it to be. It was a message that stayed away from talking about Buddhism and just talking about universal principles of compassion and mindfulness in a very non religious, secular way that everybody could engage with it wherever they stand, right? They talked about also that the gathering was so diverse. We had all different countries, all different religions. The churches in D.C. did so much to help, and also all races were there, all ages were there. There were Native American people playing instruments, so that was really, really astounding to me. But they really did offer a secular Buddhist message, and so to talk more about that, what I reflected on the most was how their message was resonating so strongly with America and the world, and with people that were remotely interested at all in Buddhism, right? And so they offered a really simple, again, secular message of mindfulness. Didn't talk about becoming a Buddhist or anything like that. They just said, please be peaceful in your life, be good towards others, be mindful in what you do. They didn't ask anybody to convert, nothing like that, right? And so for me, I noticed how, or I was really moved by the simple messages, what really seemed to resonate with people. And so that's something that I've pondered for a long time. When I started SBT, I made up my mind that I wasn't going to teach the intellectual style or academic style of Buddhism that I had learned in school. As many of you know, I went to Serije Monastery, and it's a very academic school, Tibetan Buddhism, the Gelug tradition. But I didn't necessarily believe it was very fruitful for Westerners. It seemed like more of a simple presentation, seemed to touch people's hearts a little bit more. So I started SBT with that idea, to just set that aside and just teach a straightforward, simple presentation, speaking just in English, right? As the Buddha said, speak in ways so his teachings could be understood by the farmer and the academic. And so this gives more credence to the idea that what I was thinking was quite possibly a pretty good way to engage with the world. And so as a teacher, I'd like to move more in that direction. Of course, teachers and institutions have to be able to offer something to all students. So, a simple presentation resonates with a broad group, but then we also have to cater to our brilliant students that really appreciate some academia. So we offer that as well. And then lastly, again, what was amazing was walking through America's South, which I think you have to be pretty brave to do so. There are conservative folks sometimes. The cities are liberal, right? But there's a lot of conservative folks down there. And when I was walking in robes through North Carolina and places like that, the idea of running into trouble wasn't foreign to me. That I never ran into any trouble, but you know, with conservative crowds, if you're different, it can be kind of could be problematic. So they were so brave to do so, and I think it's a part of America that really needs the most healing. So that was quite extraordinary. Any questions? What do you think, David? Did I answer your question?
Yes, definitely. Do you think there's any, maybe this is just too copycat, any scope for Buddhists doing that kind of thing or something like that in this country?
Well, clearly, you mean the walk for peace?
Yes, to promote peace. I don't know if it's a walk or,
Well,
a
clearly
sign.
not our group.
No. We could walk. I get
We
that.
got a handful of healthy people here, but maybe we could ride electric bikes. We'll get Dana to hook us up. Ride electric bikes for peace, right?
The ride electric bikes for peace. That would work.
Or we could sit for peace. But no, well, I think I don't know if you plan these things. I'm sure we're going to see a lot more of it. But I think each group does their own distinct thing. Yeah, I'm not I'm not going to be able to do it. Wamo?
Yeah, could you just talk a little bit about what you and I talked about being present a little bit more in the community now?
Say it again.
When you and I talked, you talked about this help making you realize that SBT needs to maybe be more active in the community or be at more events or.
Well, when we were talking, I think I was talking more from a personal standpoint.
Oh, okay.
As the
Okay.
leader of SBT, it was really cool to get out and engage more. And I've been so busy working all the curriculum and practices, which of course are needed for a new group, that I've really just been staying in my cave writing material for everybody and teaching, that I don't get out that much. And it was just such a great experience to get out and see some old friends that I hadn't seen. I had some old friends that were there, make new friends. So I was hoping to do that. But I think that's the idea of our Asheville project. As many of you might know, this April, SBT is shifting to Asheville, North Carolina. I'm going to be moving up there, and we're going to be working towards our first physical center. SBT will. Our focus is primarily as an online organization, and I like that. I think we'll remain that. But wouldn't it be nice to have a physical location where people can come and train with me physically and Asheville is a great place. It's kind of center for the SBT world. Europeans could come over, and of course everything will be free there, just like they are here. And so that's probably a good place to plug. If you'd like to help, boy, could we use your help. We're trying to raise some money just to have me survive up there for a little bit. And you can make a donation on the website. So excited about that. But yeah, once we get a place together, then it opens up a lot of opportunities to work more in the physical world instead of just online. Yeah. Great. Okay, if there's no more questions, I wanted to share some slides. I almost forgot. You know me, always trying to keep you guys happy. You might have seen these pictures before, but I thought I'd show them to you. Bhikkhu was so wonderful. He let everybody take his picture and pose. Every single monk got a picture with him. All the volunteers, anybody that wanted to, he stood there. He didn't look necessarily really happy about it. He's a bit of a stern guy, very loving, but very serious. But he was very patient and let everybody have that opportunity to take his picture and meet with them. I met him a few times, and so that was lovely. This was an auditorium that just the monastics were invited for a talk with him and the monks, so that was kind of special. And here's the legendary Bhikkhu Bodhi, who's now 80 years old. I could hardly keep up with him on the march, man. He could walk. He said he was determined to start down in South Carolina and walk with them, but his doctor said, "You're 80 years old. You don't do those things." But he was great, yeah. Oh, I couldn't get this dog off my bed for nothing. This is Loka, the peace dog, and these are the mats that we slept on. You can see the hard wooden floors, and so the bag in front of me up here was the monk who sits up, doesn't lay down, and instead he coughs all night long. And besides the snoring and the monk coughing and everybody getting up to pee, and then Aloka, the peace dog, was barking all night long. It was challenging, but it was even the distractions were magical. But Aloka here was just walking around the room, very social dog. He'd walk up and wanted to smell everybody, wanted to be pet, and he'd lay down on my bed here for a little while. I was sitting at the bottom edge talking to a friend, and he'd sit for a while and get up and walk around and come back, and so that was pretty cool. Again, I had to sneak the picture because the head monk didn't want us to have our phones. So anyways, there's a picture of him. Here's a picture at the cathedral. I'm not in this photo. I got stuck in traffic trying to get there initially, and I was in the cathedral, but I was a little late. So this picture was taken before the event started. They went inside. Then I ended up getting there and going in, and that was lovely. Somebody sent me this and I circled it. I didn't do that myself, but there's your beloved Venerable Tarpa walking. And can we see Bhikkhu Bodhi? Usually right next to me in most of the photos. As you can see, most of the monks are from South Asia, originally, living in America now, American citizens. And here's the last picture. I got lucky. They filled up all the front seats with dignitaries, and by the time they opened up the rest of it, I had a seat right there. And this monk here is a Rinpoche from in the Tibetan tradition, and we became great friends. And here's Bhikkhu Bodhi, of course. And this Tibetan monk also I became great friends with. So that was my experience. Should I post those for everybody? Maybe you wanna download them. Okay, I'll post them. Dana.
When I was watching the YouTube and watching through Washington, at least the monks in the front were barefoot, and some of them didn't even have anything on their arms. You know, it wasn't. I don't know what the temperature was, but it didn't look like it. You know, was real warm.
Yeah.
So what was that? That like, and what's that about walking barefoot? I saw even that the leader
Sure.
there walked right through some wet spots and stuff.
That's
Bare
right.
feet. Yeah.
So that's a traditional aspect, especially of Theravada Buddhism. So when I was in Theravada countries and I was doing alms rounds, which we go out with our bowls and we get food in the morning from all the villages, I had to be barefoot as well. And the roads were all gravel. I'm a Westerner with soft feet. A lot of the abbots would let me wear my shoes or sandals between the villages, but I had to be barefoot in the village. It's a sign of humility. In the Buddha's day, shoes weren't allowed because shoes were a sign of rich people. of prosperity, where poor people didn't have shoes. So traditionally monks don't wear, it's not part of the monk outfit. But of course that was India, where it was warm. And so, but to this day, Theravada monks still go around barefoot a lot. And so I think it was more ceremonial. I think, the last day, only the leader was barefoot. And the day was fairly nice, but boy, towards the late afternoon, it got cold. And he's at Lincoln Memorial, he's standing on wet marble, barefoot for 3 hours or something. And so I'm not sure. Yeah, I won't comment. So maybe he's just showing his mastery of his mind, that he can overlook things like that. The monks that didn't have their arms showing, had their arms bare, most likely were Tibetan Buddhist monks who keep their arms showing, like most monks do, but Theravada don't do it in public. In the monastery, Theravada monks also. It was kind of the Buddhist uniform. So my thought is, people often wonder why monks do these things, why we have shaved heads, why we wear robes in a certain way. And to me, it was that the Buddha wanted an identity and a uniform so people could understand discern his group from other groups. Because in the Buddha's time, there were hundreds of different groups, Shramanaras and Jains, and everybody had a group. So I think with him, shaved head, no facial hair, everybody had a nice clean appearance. He wore his robes with the right arm showing, which was different. Again, the colors are all colors from the bark of a certain tree. So I think it's shaved, yeah. So I think that's the reason why. A lot of tradition behind all of those things. Sorry for the long answer. Great. Any last questions? Well, I thought what would be wonderful would be to finish up and talk about Bhikkhu Pannakara's message. And so, first of all, I was quite amazed that, this small project that, there's a few traditions of Buddhism that walking like this is part of their practice. And the monks that did the walk belong to that. In the Tibetan tradition, they have it as well. They do these really long pilgrimages, and oftentimes they're doing prostrations while they're doing them. So this group of Walk for Peace monks, they had been doing these walks through many countries, including India. So it's actually part of their practice. But I don't think anybody knew how it would just explode on the world stage. My teacher and monks from my monastery at Sarah J saw me on social media, and they all wrote to me. They all sent me messages. I couldn't believe how many people saw it all worldwide. And these are people in remote monasteries in India that saw this. So I don't think anybody saw it coming. And the monks amassed, I think there was 3 million followers on Facebook and 2 million on Instagram in just a few months. So that was quite extraordinary. But again, I wanted to end my talk by reinforcing Venerable Bhikkhu Pannakara's message, which is simple but profound, that peace begins within. It's not something we create through force, politics, or changing others. It starts in our own minds and our own hearts. If we don't cultivate inner calmness, patience, and clarity, any peace we build externally will be fragile and temporary. True peace, he teaches, is the ability to remain peaceful and compassionate in any situation. At the center of his teachings is mindfulness of the breath. And he urges us to not waste our precious breath, but to return to it again and again, gently following the in-breath and the out-breath, naturally and without force. And in SBT, we call this abiding on the breath. It's one of our practices. This simple practice is the master key in calming the mind and transforming our inner afflictions of greed, anger, and delusion. When the mind is untamed, it spreads suffering. But when it's trained through awareness, it becomes a source of healing. He also emphasized cause and effect, that what we plant in our hearts grows. If we sow anger and hatred, they multiply and return as suffering. If we cultivate compassion, forgiveness, and understanding, these become protective forces for ourselves and the world. In this way, the walk for peace has been not just a physical journey, it's a lifelong inner practice where each breath, each moment of mindfulness becomes a step towards a more peaceful world. And I wanted to share the last two things. These are slides. Let me blow these up a little bit. So he had two things he shared. He called these the 10 vows. And the first one is, may every nation live in safety, stability, and dignity, free of fear, chaos, and unnecessary suffering. Number 2, may every person be heard, respected, and protected, regardless of their race, their background, their faith, and the language they speak. Number 3, may fear be replaced with understanding, and may misunderstanding never again become a reason for violence. Number 4, may hatred be transformed into compassion, so pain is met with care instead of blame. Number 5, may peace exist, not only in words and speeches, but in laws, policies, communities, and daily life. Number 6, may true strength be measured not by control, force, or weapons, but by how we protect one another, especially our children and the vulnerable. That's a beautiful one. Number 7, may progress always walk together with morality, and may growth never be built on human suffering. Number 8, may dialogue be chosen over confrontation and listening over judgment in families, societies, and nations. Number 9, may people find peace within their own hearts so that the world no longer needs violence to survive. And number 10, may the path to peace require no enemies, only human beings, returning to morality, to responsibility, and to one another. Isn't that pretty? Now, he also shared another, and this was quite nice. He called this 5 seconds of mindfulness points. So the 5 seconds of mindfulness points highlighted in his speeches regards inner peace, focused on actionable daily choices to create a kinder world. The 5 points are: number 1, choose loving kindness. Pause and stop before hurting others. Number 2, choose compassion. Avoid adding more pain to others' suffering. Number 3, choose love. Cultivate self-love and love for others to ensure dignity and safety. Number 4, choose harmony. Prefer harmony over winning. Number 5, choose mindfulness. Live with awareness to transform yourself and the world. These points encourage using simple daily actions to foster peace rather than reacting with hostility, emphasizing that no peace in the world unless we create peace in the mind first. And he's also famous for this beautiful thing. Today is going to be my peaceful day. So Bhikkhu advised everyone to consciously set a daily intention for peace by writing the sentence, "Today is going to be my peaceful day," each morning on a piece of paper, and then carrying that intention and piece of paper, I think, into how you live the day. So that's a simple practice that's quite profound. I'm going to make all of those available after the teachings on our social media. Any last questions? I had an extraordinary time. You know, the best part about it for me was thinking about all of you guys. I mean, it was a cool thing for me, but I was thinking about how special it is that I felt like a representative of the Sangha for everybody, and I felt like everybody was with me. And then when I ended up in pictures and things, I thought that was really cool for you guys. Like SBT made it into some of the things that were going on. So next time we'll all have to go together. We had a little short notice this time. Wouldn't it be great to pick a spot like that and everybody could join us together there? Pasa?
Well, you should have seen the explosion on Sangha chat with pictures of you. It just exploded. So you were missed. You were missed, truly.
Oh, that's cool. So besides that, hey, we got a busy month coming up, everybody. So I already mentioned the Asheville project. That's kind of our big push right now, because I have this funny inclination that I prefer sleeping indoors. And so we're hoping to raise enough money that I can continue to sleep indoors when I get to Asheville. And if anybody would like to help, not just in donations, but in other ways too, volunteer to help us get the word out, things like that. But I'm really excited about starting a physical center. Again, you wouldn't believe how many people have written to me and say, "When are you arriving? I want to come." So I think this is going to be extraordinary for our group. Besides that, we got some new programs coming up. Our spring lineup is coming. We have 3 different introduction to meditation programs coming out throughout the spring. The first one starts, I think, the first week of March. We also have a mind and heart training program. We have 2 of them in the spring. The first one is starting also the first week of March, and that's an extraordinary practice. Again, it's a practice to create bodhicitta, the altruistic mind of awakening. Which means it's a program for creating loving kindness and affection and a beautiful mind. That class is available to everyone, and it's a very simple program. Don't think that you're not qualified to engage. It's a very simple program in which we contemplate different thoughts throughout the week, signed topics and concepts. So we got that going on. Next Sunday, we have our end of the month retreat. Everybody's invited to join. That's going to be a lot of fun. And I think we have a few new faces here. I hope that you continue to come back and join our community. As you can see, we have just a lovely group of folks here. And community is what is really important to SBT. The real pandemic in this world is loneliness. And to have a group of fine, wonderful people to call your friends and be able to plug in and practice with and meditate together, it's extraordinary. And I think the idea of Sangha or community is the thing that's lacking in most people's practice. So that's what we're really committed to, having this beautiful community. And it includes our social media, which is free of advertisement and all those things. It's a beautiful thing that we have going on here. And we're hoping to really start growing. So So with that said, why don't we end today's teaching with our altruistic affirmation? May all be healthy, may all be prosperous, may all be well, may all be present, free of past regret and future worry. May all abide in constant appreciation, which is a sign of great joy and contentment. May all realize their true nature and the true nature of reality, which is awakening. Thanks everybody for joining me and listening to my tales. Next time you're all coming with me. See you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.